Happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead, drinking champagne, as always, joined by I was going to say globetrotting, but you've really just been at your home. But I know you've been doing some various content all around the interwebs. And Andrew, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. It's a busy week. The Breeders' Cup is always a busy week from a content standpoint. It's always a busy week from a handicapping standpoint, too. Let me show you this. Sorry, environmentalists out there. This is the packet for Saturday, 50 pages from the Daily Racing Form.
What a boomer. Get an iPad.
0. And no, I'm sorry. I grew up a pen and paper guy, and I'm always going to be a pen and paper guy. So that's been where I've spent most of my week, diving into those past performances and trying to find some horses that we can give out on this show and on a couple of other shows that I've been privileged to be a part of. If you're familiar with the notorious OTB podcast hosted by our friend Chase, the Wolf of Oaklawn, yes, it was a lot of fun being able to do that. Chase is a world-class human being and a pretty entertaining podcast host. We went through the post-position draw race by race. That was a lot of fun. Also going to be helping out our friends over at Trust the Profit 24-hour Eve. Don't quote me on this, but I believe I am on midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. So I'm dusting off the late night DJ voice so that I can give you some Breeders' Cup winners and smooth jazz. Yeah, so late night vibes there are going to be a lot of fun. Lots going on. It's going to be a blast. This is the type of week that we make our bones with. So here we go. Let's see what we can do.
I haven't hit that button in a long time, so I felt like it just needed to be hit. I don't know.
You just felt like blowing things up. It's okay. I mean, you're close enough to Arlington, blowing things up. You know, I get it. Thank you.
Yeah. So Chase reached out to me and told me what a great podcast guest you were, and
his check is in the mail.
Yeah. There was like a split second where I would have been like, yeah, I upgraded, but I love Chase. So I would not.
Chase is such a good guy, man. Love that guy.
I was trying to get him to do stuff with us this week, or I was going to ask him to, but just with like stuff going on with me and like I didn't plan as much stuff out as I'd originally planned. I did get one video up with Emily Gullickson from Optics EQ, so that just came up Wednesday night. Kind of a dual threat of a video, if you want to say. If you're not in the content creation space, there's something known as evergreen content, which I had to find out from Chase what that meant because I had no clue. But after having a discussion with Chase about what evergreen content was, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. We should do more of that. And honestly, that's kind of the kind of stuff that On the Wrong Lead kind of started with. We're moving a little bit more towards that. We're still going to be streaming for the big days. Obviously, Drinking Champagne going to come out every week with asterisk next to it, asterisk in case stuff happens, right? Weeks get missed. But kind of a tutorial on how to use Optics EQ, the lovely product that Emily works on. So they have a nice Breeders' Cup package out currently. It's $50. Includes both the entire weekend of Optics. So I believe it includes Friday, Saturday, Sunday for all tracks, but it is a Breeders' Cup special. So it's geared towards Breeders' Cup. It's got, I believe, a couple of Breeders' Cup specific things. There's a video out as well with her handicapping with John Doyle, the creator of Optics. So lots of cool stuff there. So check that out. But we did a nice little video. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, but we were having such great conversation, and it was hilarious because I think at the end I told Emily, I'm like, Emily, this was supposed to be a 15-minute conversation. We went for a half hour, and she didn't even realize it because it was just great conversation going back and forth. But talking about her product, and kind of going over these two of the Breeders' Cups races, kind of going over them from a very high level. Hey, I don't know how to use optics. What is optics telling me? What am I seeing? What am I looking at? Um, and kind of breaking down some of the different features in there. So, if you want some insight on two races, you can check that out. If you just want to learn how to use optics, also going to be great there. And it's part of our kind of horseplayer 101 series. They're just using different other tools. And that reminds me, Andrew, I need to talk to you again about a certain guest I want to get on that I know you have a connection with. And maybe you can help with an introduction. So um, we'll talk about that off air though. A little production meeting here in the middle of a podcast,
A
which is always great.
post-show production meeting. This might be a first in On the Wrong Lead history. Document this, mark it down.
But don't Mark Capitan it down.
No, don't Mark Capitan it
Yeah.
down. My goodness. See, why would you ever want to do that? Good luck, Mark. Bring home the BCBC. We're still going to throw strays at you, though. That's just who we are.
So before we get to kind of our Breeders' Cup discussion, where we're not gonna go through all the races, right? We're
No.
doing that in the next couple days, and but I kind of feel like we're talking about our best bets, our long shots, our bold predictions, but I've made a huge mistake.
Oh, no.
So the other day, in the On the Wrong Lead chat that we have between the three of me, Caleb, and Mark,
The one that
um,
I am not invited to.
correct.
Yes.
Uh, there was a message sent about Mark wanting to get access to the YouTube channel to start posting stuff. And I was like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to try and do a lot of YouTube shorts to go ahead and, kind of talk about the BCBC, do all this stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." Andrew, I'm pretty sure there was a video of Mark wearing like a shark costume. And I have no idea what it has to do with handicapping. Um And I'm just very confused as to the content he's putting out on the shorts feed. Uh, I literally I saw the thumbnail and I just put my head in my hands. I just didn't know what I was just like. What am I looking at? But then Caleb, the sharp witted, good looking human being he is,
The
goes
total
Mark.
package, really. How is he
Yeah,
single?
depends on the night. But um, Caleb goes, "Hey, Mark, you should really wear that costume in the BCBC room."
They wouldn't let him in the
I
door.
don't think they would let him in the door, but I just love the idea of Mark rolling into the BCBC room wearing this like shark costume. Like it just like it would be amazing.
No, you know
But
what he needs? What he needs is the video that Pete Aiello owes all of us of the guy pulling up in the gigantic Cadillac, all blinged out, door opens, one leg goes straight up, and he, comes out to, just full swag. He needs to get to Santa Anita, ideally in a long stretch limousine, and just come out flopping like a fish out of water.
oh man. But yeah, good luck, Mark. We are all somewhat rooting for you.
We
Um,
are, and I will also add one thing. This is a bonus from the former Southern California resident to anyone who is listening and who may be attending the Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita. If you are in the vicinity of that area, you are not far from what is, for my money, the best barbecue restaurant I have ever been to. If you go to South Pasadena, California, you will arrive at Gus's on Fair Oaks Avenue. It is an upscale barbecue place. They have a couple of locations in the Southern California area. Everything is great. The barbecue brick chicken is otherworldly. Just trust me, people. If you listen to nothing else on this podcast, whether it's our best bets, our long shots, our bold predictions, me touting Lord Miles 6 months after the fact, trust me on Gus's.
um, I would like to say that On the Wrong Lead LLC does not uh, does not stand behind the fact that Andrew just said the best barbecue exists in Southern California.
I'm just saying, man, it is otherworldly stuff. And to give you an idea, my gluten free fiance and I agree on very few things food wise. We agree on Gus's. That should tell you a lot.
Fair enough. Um,
By the
but
way, we are accepting advertisements in case anybody from Gus's wants to reach out to us. And if you want to ship me some barbecue brick chicken on dry ice, DM us. I'll give you my address.
all right. Yeah, let's take a look. We have a little we did this format last year. Um, we got our best bet for each day, a long shot for each day, and a bold prediction for each day. Um, so we'll just start right away here, Andrew. On Friday, your best bet is the number two River Tiber in the juvenile turf, 3-1 on the morning line. Talk to me.
Sure. So the juvenile turf features a 1-2 punch of horses trained by Aidan O'Brien. And in my opinion, it's a pick your poison of either two because I think he's got this field absolutely over a barrel. Number 8, unquestionable. Makes some sense if you want a bigger price. It's Frankie Dettori in a Breeders' Cup race on the turf. His ROI there is about, $6.97. The guy is good. Having said that, I prefer River Tiber, excuse me. That'll probably trip up Larry Colmus at some point. But this is a horse that earlier this year won 3 in a row, including a Group 2 race at Royal Ascot over a field of 20 horses. Comes back in a couple of Group 1 races and runs into a European buzzsaw by the name of Van Dijk. If Van Dijk had shown up in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, he would be about 3-5. That is how good Van Dijk is. So River Tiber certainly has a lot of back class, has a pedigree that indicates stretching out to a mile is not going to be a problem. Ryan Moore, I think, had his pick of which Aidan O'Brien horse he was going to ride. I believe he chose River Tiber over Unquestionable. That matters to me. And also, I just don't think the American 2-year-old turf horses are all that great. So give me River Tiber. I don't think he's going to be a prohibitive favorite. I think the morning line man got this one about right. I think you're going to get 3-1 or 5-2. And on a day that has a lot of wide open 2-year-old races, he's as close to a single as I've got.
Andrew, I'm going to preface this by saying I had a very hard time coming up with the best bet for Friday, and part of it is because I like so many long prices. So I was going back and forth on who I'm going to make my best bet in this race in this day right on Friday, and I landed in the same race, and I didn't land on either of the two horses you talked about.
Okay.
Um, and you know, I'm going to say best bet, and we're talking about, you know, well, I'm talking about this more from a value perspective, I'll say. And my best bet is in this same race, the juvenile turf, 8-1 on the morning line, and that's the 5, my boy Prince.
Josh taking the cheap speed. Let me show you my big shocked face. In case you're
Uh,
listening, the face I'm showing is my normal face. I am not at all shocked by this. This is a horse that had an absolutely picture perfect trip last time out to win the Cup and Saucer up at Woodbine. Comes in for Mark Casse, a nice horse with 3 wins in 5 starts, 2 seconds as well. But I look at this horse and I just see a horse that is largely, I think, much more of a 1-turn horse than a 2-turn horse. But I see where you're going. I see why you landed on this horse. And if you think my boy Prince can get 2 turns, you're getting your price.
yeah, and this race is a little tough because I think there are a couple of horses I also like, but uh, that are pretty good prices. Oh, actually, they're not on the AE list. Interesting. I for some reason I was under the impression the 13 and 14 were on the AE list. Um, uh, out of that common race, I also do like the 14 Carson's Run out of there, who's 6-1, but it's kind of stuck out in the parking lot.
That is an
Um,
absolutely horrible post with how tight those turns are in the Santa Anita turf course. I'm not saying Carson's Run can't win. We know how talented he is, but he's got to be an extremely good horse to be able to overcome that far outside draw.
yeah, I like River Tiber. I think River Tiber makes a ton of sense. But I think if I'm looking for some value, if I'm playing a pick and pray or something like that, if I'm not someone interested in playing horizontals, if I'm a casual person and I'm just firing $5, $10 win bets every race or something like that, I'll take a shot at my boy Prince at a pretty decent price here. Um, has done it wire to wire. Obviously, Joel's ridden before, sees fit to get back aboard here. So, yeah, I mean, Andrew, you said it best. Cheap speed. Looking at this on the optics plot, doesn't look like is going to have any type of pace pressure in this race. And I think he's just going to let it out there and see what happens and play catch me if you can. So uh, five, my boy Prince here going to be my best bet for Friday. But honestly, I just didn't really have a short price or a horse that I felt very, very confident in. Hey, like this is where I'm gonna hang my hat. Because even in the races where I like long shots, it's generally I like two or three of them. So I thought this was probably the most reasonable kind of value play I had for the day.
It makes sense. And when you look at these races, you've got 5 full fields of 2 year olds. There's going to be some bonker stuff that happens on Friday. That's called foreshadowing, kids, because of the next two things that we're going to talk about. But I get where you're going there. If this race was a 1 turn mile, if this race was at Belmont, I would like my boy Prince a lot more. I'm just not sure he's the same horse going 2 turns. And I think it's a far cry from tackling restricted company in the Cup and Saucer, and now you're attacking two Aiden O'Brien trainees that I think are very well meant. You've got a horse in Endlessly that has run very, very well out here on the West Coast. Son of Oscar Performance out of a Langfear mare. You're really not going to get much better turf pedigree than that. I prefer others, but I get where you're going.
All right. And your long shot on Friday is going to be the number 9 Bright Work in the juvenile fillies. Talk to me.
Horse number 9 and race number 6. Hi, Coots. How you doing? Tamara is going to be a very heavy favorite for several logical reasons. She's 2 for 2. She jogged in the Del Mar debutante. She's a daughter of Beholder. She might be the shortest priced favorite on Breeders' Cup Friday. She'll probably be the second shortest favorite in all of the Breeders' Cup behind Cody's Wish in the Dirt Mile. We'll get to that one. Having said that, I remember an adage from one of the best handicappers to ever do this, Harvey Pack. Never bet a horse as the favorite doing something it's never done before. We know how good Beholder was, but Beholder was a daughter of Henny Hughes, who's a sprinter. Tamara hasn't gone 2 turns yet. That's not to say she can't. If she runs back to the Del Mar debutante and gets this distance, she probably wins. But I can't bet this horse at the likely price. With that in mind, I went price shopping. And Josh, if you draw a line through the Alcibiades, what has Brightwork done wrong?
Not too much.
Just 4 for 4 with a couple of graded stakes wins, including a
Mm-hmm.
win in the grade 1 spin away at Saratoga, where she did not have an ideal trip. Much was made of ways and means that day, who had an absolutely awful trip, but Brightwork's journey was far from smooth. If you see the Alcibiades as a bounce rather than an indictment on a horse going 2 turns for the first time, it's very easy to forgive that race. And if the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies was held the first weekend in October, as opposed to the first weekend in November, Brightwork is probably the second choice behind Tamara. Now you're telling me I'm going to get double digits because of a race I can throw out? Add in the fact she has been working very well at Keeneland since that clunker. I'm encouraged. I am more than willing to give her another shot, especially given that as a 2 year old, early on in her career, she showed an ability to stalk the pace and pounce. That's the same dimension that Tamara has. The speed figures, they're a hair slower, but they're not far off. Brightwork ran an 89 and an 84 by her speed figure in her 2 wins at Saratoga. Tamara ran an 80 and a 91. Tamara might be a little bit faster, but if she can't get 2 turns, Brightwork doesn't have to move forward from her best effort in order to win this. I like Brightwork a fair bit in here. That's going to be a big contest play for me because I do think you're going to get maybe not 12 to 1, but certainly 10 to 1 or so on a horse with a lot of back class. And all you have to do is forgive the Alcibiades for her to make a lot, and I mean a lot of sense in this particular spot.
So we're gonna move on to my bold prediction
Oh, we're going out of order. Okay.
because my bold
We
prediction
agree.
is Tamara
Well,
loses
we
at a
just
very
put
very
Tamara
short
in the winner's
price.
circle.
Yeah, I so your long shot, the number 9, I do have written down as a B for me. Um, and I have two other horses I like a little bit better. Um, and I have another horse that I like probably just as much. The 12, just FYI, is probably in the same realm as the 9 Bright Work for me. I have them both written down as Bs. Um, honestly, I really like the who's going to be, I believe, the second choice in this race, the one Candide for Louis Saez and Todd Pletcher. I think on the plot it makes a ton of sense. Has already run at this distance, has shown success at this distance, and much like you were saying about Tamara, horse is stretching out for the first time. Bolt d'Oro has not necessarily shown a ton of routing pedigree as of yet. Still a very young sire. That usually comes with time, just because a lot of his horses just haven't run that long yet or that far yet. Um, but Candide, I do very much like. And obviously, Candy Ride, looks to be a more established type distance pedigree. But another horse I have as an A is 20 to 1 on the morning line. And that's number 11, Life Talk. Um, and I look through, you look through these PPs. Who did Irad ride last time?
Irad rode Brightwork and Life Talk.
And Irad decides to show up here on the longer price. And now, granted, I understand it's Todd Pletcher,
That's
not
the
John
reason
Ortiz.
why I'm pretty sure.
However, Irad does not hate money that much. This is not your normal grade 1 type race. This is not a grade 2, grade 3 type race. This is a very serious purse. I have a hard time believing that Irad would just completely forego a check just to stay in Todd's good graces. But I don't know. I would think if there was any time you could maybe kind of break that agreement, it might be in the Breeders' Cup. But I don't know all the ins and outs of how that stuff goes in the backside. Maybe that stuff's ironclad. Maybe he signed his life away. Maybe Rapoli is offered to give him a Ferrari. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there.
Maybe Rapoli offered to give Irad a powerful position in his new national horse racing governing body
We don't
thing.
have enough time to unpack that
No, no,
that
we
joke,
don't.
but
Having said that, Life Talk is a horse that I would use underneath. I don't think you're going to get 20 to 1. I think that's going to come down a little bit. You're probably going to get somewhere in the 12 to 1 to 15 to 1 range. I just cannot see a Rapoli Pletcher Irad 2 year old that ran third in a grade 1 last time out going off at 20 to 1 in this spot. The post is a concern. That's the one thing I don't like.
so we have a theme going on in this show, at least for me. My Friday long shot is in the juvenile Phillies turf, and it's number 13,
Hey,
Dreamfire.
Josh,
Huh?
where did Dreamfire debut?
Pleasanton.
The Alameda County Fair.
So debuted at Pleasanton in a 75K stakes race. Went to
I
the
loved the second place finisher that day, Josh. I'm still very bitter about that.
Sorrento and won the Grade 3 Sorrento. Then first time on turf won the Grade 3 Surfer Girl, and now is moving up, obviously moving up in class here to the juvenile fillies turf. Has done one at three different tracks, but what I like, well, besides the speed, and more speed, is Barrio stays aboard, and this horse has already won going wire to wire basically on this track. And what I also appreciate about this horse, and it's not something you see very often. You see a lot of ones in the PPs, right? You also see that one followed by a two and then the one. So this horse dueled, got headed at second call, and then found enough to fight back and win, which is just not something you see 2-year-old horses do. Um, 15 to 1 on the morning line. I mean, there are other horses I like in this race as well. Don't get me wrong. But Dreamfire is going to be on every single one of my tickets. This is going to be an A for me. I love Dreamfire in the spot.
So I would love Dreamfire if the post was better. Post 13 to me is a killer, and I do think there is other speed in the race. I also wasn't crazy about the Surfer Girl. That was a pretty slow race that did not come back all that well on figures. And you mentioned that Dreamfire did come back, regain the lead. Buttercream Babe has relinquished the lead twice in back-to-back starts. Think that horse might well just be a hanger, despite having some talent for sure. But I preferred others in this particular spot. Having said that, and this is one of the segues they teach you in broadcasting school, kids, one of the ones that I favor is not your likely favorite. Number 11, She Feels Pretty. Josh, my bold prediction for Friday, bombs away in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf.
I
She
will.
Feels Pretty ran as visually impressive a race as you're going to see in the Grade 1 Natalma last time out at Woodbine. But that race fell apart. You see a first quarter in 22 and 4 going that 1 mile distance at Woodbine. That's flying. I know that race came back okay from a class standpoint. A couple of next out winners came out of that race. But I see that horse. I see an 85 Beyer speed figure. I see bounce potential with that one. And I can't play that horse at its likely price. Thank you for that. There are a couple of bigger prices that I will throw in as horses that I think you want to consider. And one of those bigger prices, by the way, is not your likely second choice either. Number 6, Porta Fortuna, is the European runner that might take some money. You see a horse that last time out won a Group 1 at Newmarket, earned a 97 time form rating. That equates to a Beyer speed figure in the low to mid 80s. So, nice race. That's 6 furlongs out of a straight. You see, by Caravaggio, Caravaggio was a precocious sprinter type. I don't think Porta Fortuna wants any part of anything longer than 6 furlongs, and that's evidenced by the fact that the start 2 back in Group 1 company, this horse was a pretty distant third beneath Frankie Dettori, who gave that horse every chance, I thought. I'm not a fan of Porta Fortuna. I am, however, a fan of the horses surrounding Porta Fortuna in the starting gate. Number 5, Content, is 15 to 1 on the morning line. I hope we get that price come post time. Because if you draw a line through the 2 back effort where the running line says tenderly handled inside final eighth, Ryan Moore was taking care of that horse. Don't read anything into that. And the reason you can read nothing into that safely is because she came back and won at a mile with a time form rating of 87. So not a huge figure over very soft going. I like the fact that this horse has fired over good going in the past as well. I see pedigree that indicates 2 turns is not going to be an issue. You see Ryan Moore and Aidan O'Brien. That's admittedly very attractive. This is a horse that I think is very live, and I think that's the Euro that you want to bet. Meanwhile, number 7, Galabrand, is a horse that I have liked for a very long time. This past Saratoga meet was a rough one for me on a number of different levels, both personally and professionally. One of the big things I was right about, though, was Galibrand first time out at 8-1 when the horse rallied from 14 lengths back in a 5.5 furlong turf sprint to get up and win by 2.25 lengths. The running line says good finish. It was a phenomenal finish. That horse came back, won a stakes race going 2 turns, tried the Miss Grillo at next asking, and got absolutely no pace to run at. You see a half in 50 and change at Aqueduct, they were walking up front. She still managed to rally to finish fourth, though, so it's not like that effort was a total loss. I see Jose Ortiz riding back. I see some pace in the race. I think Galibrand is very, very live, and the faster they go early, the better her chances figure to be. I want no part of the chalks and the juvenile fillies turf. Give me Content, give me Galibrand, and chances are I advance in the multi-race exotics wagers.
So the one thing I did want to note about Dreamfire um, was the last out figure on time form unadjusted came back as a 70, which is glacial.
Mm-hmm.
However, it looks like Craig did break that race out and he improved it to a 94. Um, my guess is that race was just too slow to believe for all intents and purposes. Um, if you and once again, like we're looking at numbers right that are generated in a certain way. And I'm in my we talk about crossing figures out, right? In my case here, I'm improving this figure, that 94, even more in my head, and thinking if the horse can just move step forward a little bit from that 103 last time out time form, I think the horse is a contender. And it's similar reason why I don't like Tamara or Tamara. If you look back and look at some of those horses that run back in that race, they've all regressed. So maybe that figure is just a little bit inflated,
Could
And if
be.
that figure is inflated, hey, that brings a lot of these other horses into the conversation. So
Yes, and as we go forward, that's just a reminder that speed figures are just one tool in your toolbox. You can't necessarily rely on them for all of the things that you do, but there are certain patterns and certain things that you can notice and act upon. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do as part of this show. And if you like what we're doing as part of this show and you're watching this on YouTube, go on down below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out, really allows us to do a lot more of this fun content on big days like the 2023 Breeders' Cup. So we're done with Friday. We're going to move on to Saturday. All 50 pages of Saturday. My God, I could bash you over the head with this and you'd feel it. That's how thick this is.
yeah. So moving on to Saturday, we got your best bet here, Andrew. That's pretty mischievous in the distaff at 8-1.
So I'm going to preface this with a disclaimer you're not going to see in many other places in the horse racing media landscape. Making a morning line is very, very hard. Making a morning line for 14 full fields before they draw the races is incredibly hard. So if you're going to bash a morning line, you better come forward with better analysis than, oh my God, this is a terrible morning line. I say that because, with all due respect to John White, who has been doing this for a long, long time and is much better at that than a lot of people ever want to admit, you're not getting 8-1 on Pretty Mischievous. You're probably going to get 9-2, 5-1 on a horse that, if she wins the distaff, you can argue has a very strong horse of the year candidacy. Looking at her campaign, you've got 3 grade 1 wins. You've got the Kentucky Oaks, which is a grade 1 in all caps. You've got the Acorn, and you've got the Test, which nobody wants to admit happened because of what happened to Maple Leaf Mel, but Pretty Mischievous wound up winning that race after Maple Leaf Mel went down in the final strides. That's 3 grade 1 wins plus a second in the cotillion, where I thought she ran her eyeballs out over an absolute bog. at Parks. She lost nothing in defeat that day. And I look at this race, Josh, I see a lot of early speed. Who's your fillies going to go from the rail? Idiomatic has one way of going. She's going to go to the front. Adair Manor is going to want to go to the front. Search Results is going to want to go. Doesn't necessarily need the lead, but wants to be close up. Randomized, though, absolutely needs the lead. That's a lot of speed, and it's a lot of high quality speed. I don't think we're going to see a Breeders' Cup Distaff quite like we saw a couple of years ago, where the Japanese horse Marsh Lorraine came from way, way, way out of the clouds after the likes of, I believe it was Latrusco, went out in just absolutely bonkers fractions. But I do think,
Didn't Blue Prize also win coming off the pace at a
yes,
big price at
from
Santa Anita?
way back, it wasn't a huge price, but it was 9-1 or so.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think you're going to see a race shape that favors closers in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. That's exactly what Pretty Mischievous wants to do. She's been training well. She hasn't run a clunker all year long. And a win in this race gives her 4 grade ones, 2 of which are grade ones in all caps with the Kentucky Oaks and the Breeders' Cup Distaff. This is a really nice horse. She's not going to go favored. I'll say that much. And if you get 9-2 or 5-1, I think that is a very, very fair price. And if the morning line is right and we're getting 8-1, this might be one of my bigger win bets of the year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that there's definitely a single A in the distaff. My issue is that it's Clairiere. It's not Pretty Mischievous. I no, don't get me wrong. I like so in this race, I took the same exact approach that you
By
did.
the way, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's not horse number 9, not horse number 4.
Goodness gracious!
In a funny bit of serendipity, Josh had loaded these graphics in and realized that Clairiere was his best bet on Breeders' Cup Saturday last year when she ran her eyeballs out and was third in a 3-horse photo. I get where you're going with this. I just feel like we might have seen the best of Clairiere at this point. And by the way, we've talked a lot about the morning lines here. She's 4-1 on the morning line. I do think, Josh, you're going to get a better price than that.
Yeah, and this is one of the races I talked with Emily about. So if you guys want to hear a little bit more of a deeper dive, we did on optics. And it's kind of tricky because I looked at the race exactly how you did. I thought there was a lot of pace. And we looked at the plot. Plot's got a fire contention, right? It's got a lot of horses kind of vying for the lead. But the speed rate doesn't look that fast. So they don't think the pace is necessarily going to be fast. It's going to be contentious, right? But it might not be fast. However, Emily showed me some really really cool stuff on optics, how to like look at stuff, and it's really funny when Clairiere is in a fire contention with a low speed rate. She's like 2 for 3 in grade one races. So this is going to set up, I think, a little bit for her. I think it's one of those cases where they're going to invite her into this race, and she's got a really good shot at out kicking everybody. However, I will say I really, really do like the 3 Pretty Mischievous in here. Um, I have Clairiere written down as a single A for me, but Pretty Mischievous I have as a B, as well as just going by the pace scenario. I also have Wet Paint in this race as kind of a B, and I don't really think much of the horse Wet Paint. However, I think that this might be a case where the pace the pace is just going to come to her. And that was, like I said, one of the nice things, when we were talking through optics, right? Hey, optics doesn't think it's going to be that fast of a pace. I disagree with optics, much like we can talk about speed figures, disagree with them. Same type of tool. Um, and but I agree with you. I want someone from off the pace. I just happen to like Clairiere better. I think she's got the back class. I think she's just a really, really just cool horse. I'm glad she's still running. And hopefully she can finally get that Breeders' Cup win. Because I'll tell you, man, when that photo happened last year, I was like, I thought she was like gonna win, and then I was like, oh, maybe she'll at least get second. The fact that she finished third in that race is just crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I really like Clariere. This is another one of those races we kind of. I don't want to say we completely disagree, but I just think, like you said, 4-1 on the line. I think we're going to get closer to 5 or 6-1 on Clariere, and I think that's just going to be a really, really good value play.
And that's what the Breeders' Cup is for, right? It's for finding those really classy horses that you can look back on Sunday morning and going, how did that horse pay 12 or $14? And that's what Breeders' Cup is great for handicappers like us that are searching for that kind of value. I respect Idiomatic. Idiomatic has run a number of very good races, but she's going to get company up front, the likes of which she has not gotten in the last couple of starts. And I think that's going to make for a fascinating thing at about the half mile pole when the real running starts, because I do think you're going to see Clariere and Pretty Mischievous starting to rev up, along with some of the other closers in the field that might be clunking up for third or fourth money once the pace setters start plummeting towards the back of the pack. We think the race shape is very similar. We've just got different closers. I can live
Yep.
with that.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not leaving Pretty Mischievous off any tickets. Will definitely be a B type for me. And we'll see what price we get on the horse. I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad as you think it is, but um, I could be wrong. Let's move on to your long shot here in the turf.
The very next race on the program, we're going distaff to turf. And I've got a 2A, 2B approach in this particular race. As you might expect, the horses I'm leaning on, not American horses. You look at number 5, Auguste Rodin. This is a horse with 6 wins and 9 lifetime starts, a horse that comes in off a win in the Group 1 Irish Champion with a 124 time form rating. That translates into something in the mid to high 1 O's in buyers. That's a fast horse. This is a 3-year-old that has been prominent in the UK scene all year long, won the Epsom Derby, a race that I was shockingly close to being able to get to see in person when I went to London. I landed about 2 hours before the race, got hung up in baggage claim in Heathrow, wasn't able to get to the track that day on my way to seeing my buddy at the hotel we were staying at. So Auguste Rodin, logical. The other A, though, is horse number 1. I'm going to say Shirar. I am probably wrong, and I am probably sending our friend Caitlin Free into some conniption. But at any rate, one of the things I look for when I see a European runner coming to the Breeders' Cup is I do look at those time form ratings. I look and I see what the best numbers these horses have run. And I look at a minimum for horses that have shown they can consistently run in the low to mid 120s. That's a world class figure. Back in 2022, Shirar at multiple racetracks on multiple continents ran time form numbers of 125, 120, and 125. Since then, he ran 5th in the Dubai Shima Classic behind Equinox, who is probably the best turf horse in the world. Horse that ran 4th, beaten 7 lengths that day, was Mostadef, who is probably going to be the favorite in the Breeders' Cup turf. He was 4th, beaten 7 lengths. Shirar was 5th, beaten 8 lengths. And Shirar's going to be that much of a bigger price? Really? The last out effort, not good at all whatsoever. But he's gotten a surgery since then. And if we see the Shirar that we saw in 2022 when he won the Dubai Shima Classic over the previous year's Breeders' Cup turf winner, when he was 4th in the Prince of Wales at Royal Ascot behind State of Rest, when he was 5th behind Equinox in the Tenno Show, beaten less than 4 lengths, when he was 2nd, beaten less than a length in the Japan Cup, a $5.5 million race. You've got a horse that can absolutely win this race at a massively overlaid price. Shirar is an A for me. Auguste Rodin is an A for me. The 2Bs are going to be Mostadef and King of Steel. And I've got some questions about both of these horses. Mostadef, last time out, won the Juddmonte International at York with a 128 time form number. On time form numbers, this horse is significantly above the rest of the European contingent. But I look and I see a horse that has done his best running going a mile and a quarter, a mile and 5/16. This is a mile and a half. And the thing that gives me some pause is if most to death was this well meant, why is Frankie Dettori, who rode this horse to victory in the Juddmonte International, on King of Steel? Maybe there's a legitimate reason for that. I don't know. But I do know Most to Death is trained by John Gosden. John Gosden and Frankie Dettori have won a lot of races together. I don't know what the story is on why Frankie Dettori is not riding Most to Death here, but I think it's telling. Dettori shows up instead on King of Steel, who last time out won the Champion Stakes at Ascot just a couple of weeks ago. This will be his third start since early September. The thing I don't like about King of Steel is he's run up against Auguste Rodin 3 times and lost all 3 times. I don't see anything that tells me this is going to be any different. King of Steel might present a little bit of value. His last race was very good, but I see a horse that has been chasing another horse that also shows up in this spot, and the horse he's been chasing may well not go off the favorite. Still, Sherrar to me is where the value is in this spot. He's going to be on all of my tickets. The post position is not ideal. That inside draw going down the hill a little bit gives me a little bit of pause. But I look at that price, Josh, and I see a horse that should be half that number.
Um, do you think that John Gosden's a huge Ozzy Osbourne fan?
What makes you say that?
Because he always likes to have Mr. Crowley ride for him. No.
I mean, he might just be a Satanist.
Okay.
Eh.
Um,
No, if I had said that, you would have booed.
yeah,
No,
but
we're
that was
not
me
going to
saying it
applaud
instead.
that.
Yep. Too late. I am the one with the soundboard.
Yes, you can tell who has the soundboard. Better. Now we're even. Now you don't.
In fairness to Frankie getting off of most stuff, Crowley has written him like 5 or 6 times, so it's not
That's
like
true, but in a race like this, don't you want the guy you never leave off your tickets
maybe
in the
John
Breeders'
Gosling
Cup
kicked
Turf?
him off. Maybe he's like, hey, you didn't win by enough lengths last time. I don't know. I honestly I think this is a very tough race. I don't have a very strong opinion in that race. I am using your one. I'm like using like 7 horses in this race. So
Way to take a stand.
yeah, I don't have a great feel about this race. But I was actually going to ask you a question. And I was thinking about this. Um, Bob Baffert, right? We're in his backyard. Um, I don't feel like he's got as strong of a hand as he normally does. What do you think?
He's got the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Classic. He's got 3 horses in the Juvenile. He's got a horse in a turf race that I don't think is entirely without a shot. I'm not crying for Bob Baffert. I think he's got a chance to do some damage.
Well, yeah, because I think um, probably the horse I like of his the most happens to be 15-1 on the morning line in the BC
Yep.
Mile, which is du jour.
He's
Um,
not without a shot.
and I like once again, this is another spread race I think for me. Um, you know, and I was talking about this race with a couple other people, and this race is different than previous years. Previous years we've had these milers show up, and you're just like, oh, like these are monsters. These these are monsters. These are absolute monsters. I don't feel like you got that this year. Maj, good, right? I think kind of had everything her own way, or her own way in that Keeneland mile and eighth race, and I mean the figure came back okay. Master of the Seas, I mean, was like you thought that Keeneland race, like he was just going to just you know glide on by and just no, didn't get past up to the mark. Who's running in the turf, um, and I'm not saying they're without a shot, and let's not. We have Songline, obviously, who I think of the horses that are shipping in is the monster in this race. Um, but when I look at Du Jour, who is the 8 horse in this race, I see a horse that, since being gelded, has just kind of continually improved, and not necessarily won a ton of races, right? I mean, he's on a two race win streak, but this horse has kind of just steadily improved. And this horse was very good as a 3-year-old. 4-year-old, I think, kind of had a middling campaign, but since turning 5, has kind of, I don't know, has just turned into a really, really nice turf mile, and has gotten better. For me, I always think with turf horses, 5 years old, that's their peak, right? This is right now as good as this horse is going to be. This horse needs to take one more slight step up from that 121 time form last time out. So you are asking a bit, right? This isn't a horse that you look at their last couple races and you're like, oh, he's got races that fit. This is definitely a horse that needs to take a step forward. You get Flavian Pratt aboard, who knows the Santa Anita turf probably about as well as any jock that's going to be riding here.
And a jockey that knows this horse
Yep.
as well as anybody. If you only look at the races where Flavian Pratt has ridden this horse, you see 3 big wins. You see a race that's a complete throwout back in December of 2021 because it came off the turf. But that race last time out was easily a career best for Du Jour.
Yep. So I think, like you said, I don't think this horse is in without a shot. I think 15-1 is going to be a very, very nice price. We'll see what we get. I think offshore, I saw that it was a little bit higher, but we'll see kind of how the market goes. I We'll see if any other horses scratch. Who the heck knows, right? This has been a crazy week.
I'm knocking on wood. I don't know if anybody out there can hear me, but I am knocking on real wood that my desk is made out of. I might be throwing some salt over my shoulder in a little bit. If anyone knows any witch doctors out there that might be able to remove the curse that is clearly on Santa Anita right now, by all means, forward that along to track management at your earliest convenience.
But yeah, I think I think Du Jour's in here with a shot. I was hoping you were going to say you hated this horse, and then you
No,
somewhat agreed with me, and that just completely ruined my entire shtick and
having
my
said that,
gimmick.
I will say Songline's Alone for me in there.
Um,
I think Songline is going to be very, very tough. But if Songline doesn't fire, it's anybody's race, and Du Jour is certainly not outclassed immensely by anybody else in the field.
well, there is a short price that you don't think is very tough.
Yeah. Hit the button on behalf of everybody that likes a good story. No, on behalf of everyone that likes a good story. The other one. The other one, damn it. Okay, so our audio person is asleep at the switch. And it is with this in mind, I love the Cody's Wish story. Anybody with a heart loves the Cody's Wish story. Oh, suddenly the button works. However, Cody's Wish going 1 turn is a super horse. Cody's Wish going 2 turns is pretty good, but he's not quite the same animal. And we see enough of a sample size to be able to determine that. If you look at his 1-turn races like the Met Mile, where he had a 112 Beyer speed figure and just beat the crap out of Zandon and White Abario, 2 horses that are going to take money in the Breeders' Cup Classic. You see the Churchill Downs, 7 furlongs, wins by almost 5 lengths. Then you see last year's Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, which he wins, but it's not like he was overwhelming in doing that, where the race completely fell apart and benefited him being so far back early on. And then you look at the Whitney, where I understand he did not have a great break, but the break did not cost him 10 lengths. That's what he lost by. I look at Cody's Wish, and especially after the events surrounding Practical Move, who will obviously not be running on Saturday, Cody's Wish is 9 to 5 on the morning line. He's going to be even money and might be odds on. I don't think he should be. He's probably the most likely winner, but that price hits me as a significant underlay. And I think there are other options in the field that make for significantly better wagering alternatives. If you look at number four, Zozos, for instance, you're seeing a horse that has won 4 of the last 5 starts and has run well going 2 turns in the past. You're also seeing a horse with early speed in a 1 mile race that doesn't have a ton of it. Zozos, I think, is going to be one to fear. And the other runner that I think you want to consider goes out of the barn of that Baffert fellow that we were talking about. I'm referring to the Preakness winner, National Treasure. And I understand that his last couple of races look sort of underwhelming. I look at the last couple of workouts. I think Bob Baffert has this one tuned up. And I think if you've been waiting for a chance to get this horse at a price in a situation where he's going to have as much his own way as he probably ever will moving forward, in a race that doesn't have a ton of world beaters signed on, outside of Cody's Wish, who's doing something he might not necessarily want to do. We call them bold predictions for a reason, and there's every chance Cody's Wish makes me look silly. If he does, I will tip my cap to a horse that will have won his 11th race in 16 lifetime starts and who will push his career earnings up over $3 million. I believe this will be his last start before he goes off to stud. Phenomenal horse, phenomenal story. If we're talking bold predictions, I can't bet him.
Yeah, unfortunate in this race that Algiers scratched, because Algiers was a horse that I was going to be heavily behind to beat Cody's Wish in this spot. Um, but I agree with you. I really like National Treasure in this spot. You know, and I think there's another horse in this race. We memed on it earlier. And Mark Capitan loves this horse. But I'm going to tell you that Charge It is a different horse going a mile. He just is. He's just a different horse going a mile. You look at his Dwyer, which I know is a one turn mile. You look at his GP mile, which I believe is a one turn mile. And you look
Yes.
at his Met mile, which of course is a one turn mile. But those races absolutely fit in a world where Cody's Wish in 4 straight races has regressed every single time, at least on time form. You know, maybe DRF has got something different, but at least Cody's Wish to me looks like a horse that's rounding out of form. And you got a horse like Charge It, who's very, very consistent and consistently runs to where I think Cody's Wish is at currently. So I think Charge It makes a bit of sense. National Treasure, I think, would be a lone A for me in here. I like Zozos a little bit as well. But yeah, I'm also against Cody's Wish, which is why I couldn't write that as my bold prediction. And um, I think I said something in the Discord that I was against Cody's Wish, and someone said, "Wow, how could you say something so brave?" But yeah, my bold prediction for Saturday, maybe this should have been my best bet, but my boy White Abario is going to run a hole in the wind. He's winning the classic, and he might break Vino Rosso's record for the fastest thoroughbred figure ever ridden. Let's go! I absolutely love White Abario. I am so upset that Arcangelo was not able to run, because I was very much against Arcangelo. I much preferred Mage, who I was also kind of upset scratched out of that race. Um, and that just seems to be kind of par for the course as of late, with these big races, them getting scratched down for various reasons. I mean, we've seen the Derby. This happened to the Derby. It's always happened to the Derby. I think, Andrew, you've told a story about who was it that scratched like day of? Not I mean obviously Forte, but
I was going to say thanks for
there was another horse that you really liked that scratched day of. Um,
there were a bunch of them, but
yeah.
yeah, you're absolutely right in that the scratches with the classic have significantly lessened the wagering appeal. I would say that you are the second biggest White Abario fan, but after this guy threw some shade at me, I really don't want to throw anything his way that he doesn't deserve. So in my book, you are the biggest White Abario fan that I know. Um, Unfortunately, while White Abario might run a hole in the wind, I feel like you're running into a Japanese buzzsaw, and I'm not talking Tajiri, folks. If Ushba Tesoro runs the race he ran in the Dubai World Cup, I don't think anybody beats him. And unfortunately, with all of the defections and all of the scratches, you're looking at a horse that was probably going to be 8-1 or so if this race was run 2 weeks ago. He's going to be half that now. But I do think he is significantly your most likely winner. White Abario, I understand, but don't the two workouts that got altered for various reasons scare you at all?
Dude, I don't know what a good horse and a bad horse look like, so no.
In Dutro, you trust? Okay.
In Safi, I trust.
Well, Dutro is the guy training the horse.
Look,
You
I'm
know,
just saying if Dutrow wins this, he's gonna have Safi in the winner's circle with him.
that'd be a heck of a move. I feel like horse racing Twitter would break.
Oh man, this was fun, Andrew. I always like doing this show. This show's always a good time. Um, yeah, you want to kind of like I said, we just put out the optics kind of tutorial. Went over two races. I believe it was the fifth and the seventh race. The um, Philly Mare Sprint and the Distaff that we covered on a video with Emily Gullickson from Optics. So that's up now. We're going to be streaming tonight, Thursday night, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. Andrew, open invitation if you want to hop on, but I know you might be bowling. And then we're going to also stream Friday night, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. Andrew, open invitation. I know you probably have date night that night.
No,
Um,
Friday is mostly clear, believe it or not. So
okay.
you might have to put up with me for a little while, but know that I need to salvage the pipes for my midnight special that I'm going to be putting on. Once again, Breeders' Cup winners and smooth jazz.
I hate smooth jazz.
Well, smooth jazz hates you.
Yeah. I mean, I play saxophone, so of course, like, there's nothing that I hated more than people like, oh, can you play some Kenny G? And then, you had that stupid horse named after that stupid Kenny G song,
Which one was this?
Songbird.
Oh, okay.
Right? Isn't that like that's like Kenny G's biggest hit, isn't it?
I don't know. I just figured that the horse was named Songbird for other reasons. I didn't get the
I mean,
Kenny
it
G.
probably is. I'm just, being an angry saxophonist apparently. But yeah, you can check out Andrew at Andrew Champagne. He's done a bunch of stuff. I'm at Cherry Drank. Obviously, you can check us out at wrong_lead on thewronglead.com. YouTube, like, subscribe. Podcasts, like, subscribe, do all the stuff. Download on multiple apps. Do whatever you can. Um, Mark's gonna be posting some videos live from the BCBC. He's doing some nonsense in a shark costume apparently that I haven't seen yet. But yeah, we will catch you guys later. Let's win some money, guys.